We are talking about the 2004 Clint Eastwood movie, Million Dollar Baby. This is an absolutely fantastic movie. It's not as much of a happy ending or a heroic tale as we often do here on WonderTour. But for us, this is a perfect opportunity to just embrace the conflict that life holds, the conflict of leadership, the fact that decisions aren't always going to be straightforward and easy, and there's not a leadership manual that we can write or we can find that's just going to have solutions for us. So in this episode, we're going to talk about Frankie. We're going to talk about this conflicted Clint Eastwood character who has his own past and is bringing that past into the mentoring of his fighters. And in the end, there's no clear resolution to this story. So Brian, I want to start out with a question for you, because Clint Eastwood has this character of risk aversion, right? That's what he's all about. He has this moment with Scraps, Morgan Freeman's character, where he loses his eye in a fight and he feels responsibility for it as the mentor and the manager. And so he becomes extremely risk averse. So Brian, let's try to make this applicable. How do you protect yourself and the ones that you're leading from risk?
No, this is a great question, but also kind of a dummy question, right? Because you can't. The thing that we see in this movie, the thing that we feel intuitively and don't want to accept, is that there is no such thing as always protect yourself. Like, that's Frankie's mantra that he's always, harping on with Maggie as he's training her. And he's not wrong, right? Like, he's not wrong. Like, if you're going to go into a boxing ring, you should probably keep your hands up. You should probably not turn your back. You should probably prioritize waiting for the right opportunity rather than going in swinging blindly. Like, he's not wrong, but it's impossible to always protect yourself and strive for something great at the same time, right? Like we talked about in the last episode, if your mindset is loss aversion or risk aversion, like, I don't want to let anything bad happen to me, you will never expose yourself to an opportunity. If your mindset is like, I don't ever want to get punched, then you'll never take a swing, right? And so really what we're seeing in this movie, what this movie is so good at, and the Clint Eastwood character is so good at, is just showing us the emotional weight of leadership. You cannot possibly embrace another person's growth and embrace another person's goals, spend years with them, persevering through struggles, right? Sharing successes, sharing failures, coaching them through, things that they need to learn. You can't possibly do that and not expose yourself to risk and not expose yourself to the fact that you can get hurt, they can get hurt, you can both fail. One or both of you can be wrong. And the framing of this is great because Frankie comes into this story already knowing that. He comes into this story, like you said, he's got 25 years ago, 30 years ago, he had this experience with his best friend who lost an eye in a fight where he was the cut man, where he wanted to be able to, get him out of the fight, but couldn't. He's got this experience where he's got this unexplained failed relationship with his family where he never, he keeps sending letters to his daughter, she keeps sending them back, and he never resolves that. Like, he knows the potential of failure. He knows the potential of never achieving your goals. So he's trying to be very close. He's trying to be very protective of himself. He's trying to be very protective of, his first real conversation with Maggie is like, you're too old and this isn't going to work. And I hate to be the one to tell you, but you're never going to be successful, so you shouldn't try. Right? Like, he's just like right up front trying to protect her from the potential for disappointment. Like, what are you going to go fight some 21-year-olds? This isn't a good idea. Right. He's got this armor on. He's got this shell of like, always protect yourself. But he's vulnerable to the appeal because he does believe in greatness. He does believe in success. He does really want to coach a championship fighter. He does really want to have a close relationship with somebody that he mentors. Like, he actually does want those things. And he believes in people despite his fears, right? So he opens himself up to risk in this movie. He opens himself up to, emotional vulnerability again, and opens his protege up to physical risk, which is, boxing is the great metaphor for that. Like, you are literally getting punched over and over again, right? And what this movie, doesn't do is tell us that it's all going to work out. This movie is like, yeah, that's a real thing, and it could go very, very badly, and it will fall on you. If you're the leader, if you're the mentor, if you're the person that's saying, this is what you need to do and this is how it's going to work and this is your potential, it's going to fall on you, even if it wasn't necessarily your idea, even if it wasn't necessarily your fault. You're going to feel that weight. And that's the thing that I think is so powerful about this movie, is just sort of showing that tension between aspirations and the emotional risks of failure.
Yeah. And to your point, you have to take risks to build relationships. Like, that is what creates these strong ties in relationships. It's not always keeping somebody at an arm's length. It's not always telling somebody what they want to hear. What builds these deep relationships is the arguments, right? It's the productive arguments. It's the challenging somebody to tell them you're not doing good enough and you're not going to be able to be successful with the way that you're currently operating. Like, that's the type of deep relationships that humans crave. The problem is that in order to get there, you have to be willing to take risks. You can't just keep somebody at a, I'm going to send you letters length, right? Like he has with his daughter, where he's just sending these letters that are getting returned to sender, as we see at the end. Is that really what it's about? Is that really how we're going to conduct ourselves in life? How we're going to build relationships? We have to be willing to go out there and take a certain level of risk. And that's what's venerable about what he learns and does in this movie. And that's really, as all great mentor-mentee relationships, the mentor ends up learning more than the mentee probably. But that's what he learns really from Maggie, right? Is this, that it's okay to take risks. In the end, outcomes are going to fall on a distribution. It's not easy to decide how things end up. Nobody can be deterministic about this. The only way to be deterministic about risk tolerance is to have no tolerance for risk at all. And if you do that, then let's get a little bit mechanistic about it for a second here, Brian, right? Just think of a normal distribution. I know not all events fall on normal distributions, but if you just think of a bell curve in your head, right? The goal of risk aversion is to push everything towards the center of that curve, right? We want to make that curve so skinny that all the results that happen like right there, right in there near the median.
The illusion of control.
Yeah, it's the illusion of control, exactly. But what does that do? It consolidates all outcomes on marginal benefits. It consolidates all outcomes on getting the benefit of stability, but there's no upside anymore. Sure, you squeeze out a lot of the downside, but you also squeeze out a lot of the upside. And the upside is what makes transformative changes in the world. The upside is what gives, joy to people, is swinging for upside, is what gives people hope and dreams. And the upside is like, that's what Maggie teaches Frankie. She's like, no, we have to swing for the far end of the curve sometimes. Like, let me go in for the title fight. But we don't know what's going to happen if I do, but we have to take that chance.